Tech Talk Tuesday. Hey, Scott, Matt. Number 113, I believe, is correct. Charlie Edmondson. Thank you, Charlie. Always count on you, man. I know I say this every week. Hey, Scott. Hey, look, if Charlie don't sign up on her, hey, Chuck, how y'all doing over there in Georgia? Hey, Charlie, if anybody ever watches Tech Talk 113 or 14 or on up from here, and you don't see Charlie Edmondson's name pop up on here, somebody call 911. Because if you did, it would be the first time in 113 weeks in a row that he didn't make it. So I know some of you guys are religious watching this, and I really appreciate it. Hey, Mark. Hey, Steve. Ray. Greg. Thank y'all. Got some people signing up. Got some good stuff to talk about today. I want to do a little history lesson. I want to talk a little bit about piston alloys. I want to talk about some racing history, and I want to talk about the how and why of what's up and what we have learned, what we know today versus what we didn't know, and what we learned the hard way with the N2O, which is 2 parts nitrogen and 1 part oxygen, and we affectionately call it NOS, and that's from nitrous oxide systems that Dale Vazanian and our old friend over there, those boys over there that started that deal for us. I still got some Mike Thermos on here that we communicate with. Hey, Ronnie, Todd, John, Jim. Hey, you made it on time, Dwayne Taylor, Brandy. So when y'all see the name come across there with our old friend Mike Thermos and his buddy Dale Bazanian back 45, 60 years ago, they created a really nice product. I think Ack Miller may have been the first one, but they were the ones to take it mainstream, and it became famous. Hey, Matt, Greg, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Lonnie, we'll get a couple more names going, and I'll get the story going. Fastest half hour. Yeah, Mike, thank you for signing up. Guglielmucci, I remember you, Mike. You were a good dude, came through the school with me, and we went through Simja together for all those years. Hey, Chris, Dave, G, Scott, long time. Okay, let's flip this over and do a little history lesson with you guys right quick. So I'm going to turn this over where you got to look at me for a minute. Hey, Doug. All right, how's it going, guys and gals? I appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm at home today. Worked at the shop a little bit. Real quick, I wanted to tell you that since I saw you last, my friend Jamie Lima and I went to Memphis Motorsports Park and rented the track with some radial tire guys, and I was able to run Buck again and got it to go 10.1, 10.10, 133 miles an hour, 132.9, something like that. The time before we had gone, which was 3 or 4 weeks prior to, I went 10.44 at 129 miles an hour. It was hot and humid, but this time it was nice out. The weather was really nice. It was 80 degrees, and we had a slight headwind, but it was 20 degrees cooler. And if you watch Tech Talk Tuesdays, you'll see where I've told you before that every 10 degrees of air, inlet air temperature, every 10 degrees more is a 1% horsepower loss. Every 10 degrees of intake air less is 1% horsepower gain. And I don't know where that stops being 1%, but I know somewhere around 30, 40 degrees Fahrenheit versus 100 degrees Fahrenheit could be a lot of horsepower. And that's why some of your motorcycles and your cars run really, really good in the wintertime or on a cool morning. And sometimes, I remember when I had a supercharged Cadillac, one of those CTSVs, and when I would drive it to work in the mornings, it would light the tires from about any roll, 30, 40, 50 miles an hour. And on the way home, when it would be 90 or 100 degrees, it wasn't as easy to spin the tires because it had really hot intake air temperature, which took a bunch of power out. That's not the story today, but that's just something that happens. Hey, Steve, Donnie, Walter, Josh, thank you all for tuning in. I'm working on getting a little crowd going here. But the fun thing about what we learned with Buck is I went up 2 teeth on the rear sprocket. So just for you guys, technical guys that want to know, that's 25 on the front 56 on the back, and that made it go through the gears quicker, and I was able to get into high gear by the finish line at 133 miles an hour. I was actually well into fifth gear. It's 2003 CVO Road King, and it's a 5-speed, factory 5-speed transmission. But it makes 180 horsepower corrected. So on a cool day, it might be 185 horsepower, and on a hot day, it might be 170 horsepower. So there's a big swing in there that helps on when it's cool, you get more oxygen, and when it's hot, you get less oxygen content in your air, because cool mixtures have more oxygen molecules. And when it's humid out, then the amount of air, look at my face is sideways. One's got an opening, this is an opening ramp, this is a closing ramp. I never noticed that before. Wow, on a cam lobe. This is opening ramp, this is closing ramp. Wow, look at that. Might need to go to the doctor and get my mumps checked or something. Anyway, I know, right? That's the brain. Something's wrong with it. Been that way ever since Jackie met me. I don't know why she married me. Hey, Tom, I know why you're laughing. And Kip at Cam Ocean told me that was an asymmetrical mug. Asymmetrical. But going back to the history lesson I wanted to tell you, I want to flip back over and show you some cool pictures. Y'all are laughing at me. All right, Tech Talk 113. That's cool. 113 weeks in a row. And the TTT stands for Tech Talk Tuesday. And I'm going to show you some stuff now. And this is going to be funny to some of you. And some of you, check this out. This car right here was a Pro Stock car champion back in, I guess, 90, 91, 92. And you can see right on the window, there's some cool stuff on this picture. It says Pro Number 1. It's got Darrell Alderman on the door, and it has tape through his name, and it has the late, great John Myers. And you can see Jerry. Look at that. From Warner Robins Dragway. Jerry Barker. Man, Jerry Barker was a big presence in my career growing up. He ran this greatest drag strip that I ever went to back in that day. And this is a dream come true for Jerry Barker. Today, Jerry flies jet airplanes. He's a jet air pilot. He has the coolest hot rod cars, and one of his sons is a recent Pro Mod champion in the Lowe's Toyota Pro Mod car that runs Nitrous. And that family right there, the Barkers, they're really, really smart about one of the subjects I'm going to talk about today. And this car right here, well, the reason I showed it to you is I found these old pictures, and I wanted to share an inverted radius. Okay, Tom, let's get back technical on inverted radius. That's right. It takes a small grinding wheel to do that one. All right. What's his name here? John Myers, the late, great John Myers. He was my driver on the Pro Stock motorcycle for 7 or 8 years. And John, and my friend Dave Hutchins, who was one of the owners of the Wayne County Speed Shop, he's the one that drove the old Opel car before he got into Pro Stock, and they used to win a lot, comp eliminator with that car. It was a tiny, weeny little Corvette almost. But anyway, we were talking at the finals when we won the championship. John won, Darrell won, so we were the normally aspirated champions that year. And I said to him, I said, you know what would be cool? Darrell thinks he is an all-star. Darrell thinks he can drive anything. So there's Darrell Alderman sitting on my motorcycle. That's John's wife, Carrie, and me standing there talking to him. And so he says, you know what, I'd love to ride that thing. So me and my buddy, Dave Hutchins, put a deal together to go to Warner Robins Dragway and dress up the car for John to drive down the drag strip and dress up the bike for Darrell to drive down the drag strip. And we had National Dragster come out and do a cover for the National Dragster with John Myers in the car and Darrell Alderman on the bike. Now, I had a set of leathers for Darrell to wear, and let me show it to you. Here's my leathers, taped over my name, and Darrell Alderman rode John Myers' motorcycle with my leathers. And this was so hilarious because he said, I got Harleys, I got Hayabusas, I got this, I got Suzuki. He didn't have a Hayabusa. That was before they invented Busas. But he said, I had this and I had that. And he said, I can drive that thing. So we fixed him up. He knew how to do a burnout perfectly. We told him how everything works. And then, of course, John's wife, Carrie here, she's telling him how to drive it. she was a little bit bossy like that, and me and her were like alpha personalities, alpha males. But she was a female and I was a male, but we were both kind of bossy. So I was trying to tell him how to drive it, and she was trying to tell him how to drive it, and it was hilarious. John Myers was just standing off to the side watching and laughing. But when Daryl Alderman launched this thing and the tire hooked and he popped the clutch, and look, you can see he's got WOT, he's got the throttle wide open. And when he let go of the clutch, both his hands come off the handlebars, both his feet come up in the air, and the bike took off and left him looking like the singular airless Wycon. Like, this is how he looked from the back when he took off. Both hands and both feet. That's how he looked. His feet were like this and his hands were like this. The throttle shut on the motorcycle. And he fell back forward and grabbed the handlebars, and he came back, and he's like, good grief, man. How you do this? How you do that? So here he is explaining to John and myself about how amazed he was at how that motorcycle ran and how John is the man. Well, let's go back to John in the car. This was so awesome. John Myers did the Lenco burnout. Wah, da, da, drove it across the line, backed up like a pro, staged it in there, floored it, banged the clutch, pulled second, pulled third, and then by agreement, we all agreed for him to shut it down so we didn't wad up this car that was the world champion at the time. And what a great day it was, because when they found out about it, when National Dragster found out that me and Dave Hutchins had put this deal together, they sent out a crew, sent out a photographer, sent out a story writer. And the most amazing thing that happened for our Pro Stock motorcycle category during this was in December, y'all. Just so happened this Sunday morning in December that God shined on us and put beautiful weather, beautiful skies. It was cold, but we made it look like a nice day. It wasn't freezing cold. I mean, even Jerry Barker's out here in his shirt sleeves. But there was frost on the ground when we got there. But you know how it is. Some days when you wake up and it's frosty on the ground, it gets warmed up nice and fast. So by midday, we had a nice track and we had nice weather. But what was really cool, and I know I stretched this story out too long, but Tom G was the television director for Diamond P Sports, and he was up on top of the little tower, and somebody told me that the boss from the TV show was upstairs on top of the tower. So I climbed up there, and when you talk to Tom G today, we saw each other one time at an airport, and he said, I got to tell you, George, one day I was just remembering that you found out I was on top of the tower, and you came up there and you said, why are you here? And he said, I heard that John Myers, the champion, and Daryl Alderman, the champion, were going to swap rides, and I wanted to do a TV piece for Diamond P Sports. I said, that's cool. Thank you for coming. I said, I got a question for you. How come there's no motorcycles on TV? How come Pro Stock motorcycles don't make the TV show? And this is what Tom G said back to me. And he said that I absolutely pigeonholed him, and he had no answer. So we stayed in communication, and we worked on sponsors, and we got the wax shop to come in and help us on this motorcycle right here. And we got the wax shop. Jess Winters bought a camera to go on the bike, go on the helmet, and the antenna, microwave antenna to go on the back. And Diamond P Sports took an interest in our class, and we ended up with TV coverage every race on our Pro Stock motorcycles from 1991 on. And this was just what kicked it off. I mean, just this, we pulled off this stunt that cost all of us a lot of money. The Wayne County boys cost them money, National Hot Rod Association cost them money, Drag Strip cost them money, but we all invested in the future of our sport. And it turned out to be the cover of National Dragster and a great story for the history of our category and our sport. And I wanted to thank everybody I named in this little presentation for it. Now, I'm going to go over here to, this is, Daryl will not be proud of this singular wireless icon right here of him launching off the bike. But when the throttle shut, the bike slowed down and he came back and caught it, and nobody got hurt. So it was an amazing story. It was fun. Okay, going to the how and why. This Nitrous N2O, we've all heard of it. It's got a bad reputation for 40 or 50 years now that if you inject it into your high-performance engine, you'll blow up. Well, it depends on how you tune it. This is a great advantage for an engine. Engines love this stuff. But I'm going to tell you, like I posted this week, you can get too much of anything. I know you think that's crazy, but you can have too much of anything. So just because a 100 shot's good, maybe you ought to have a 500 shot. Just because a 500 shot's good, well, yeah, maybe you ought to have a 1,000 shot. Well, when this first came out and we were using a little bit, there wasn't very many people that understood it because it was like a little bit like a science or a black art. And I had burned up more pistons in 40 years trying to figure this stuff out than probably, I can't say more than John Force's team burned up pistons trying to learn nitro, because nitro is 100 times harder to figure out how to tune than nitrous oxide. But nitrous oxide is very simple. It is 2 parts nitrogen and 1 part oxygen. And our engines love oxygen. And if you put enough fuel with this this is 100% a molecule, 66% nitrogen, 33% oxygen. And when you inject this or spray this into your engine through the intake side of your engine, it doesn't see the nitrogen much, but it darn sure sees the oxygen. It is incredible how much it leans out. If you put straight oxygen into your engine without more fuel, it will cut off. It won't run. So when people say that they burned up their nitrous engine by being too lean, it was close to being right, but it was a little bit too lean. Because if you don't turn on the fuel pump, I'm proof, I've done it, proved it 100 times. If you forget to turn on the fuel pump and you spray the house down, it won't run. All it does is just cut off because there's no fuel. Nitrous oxide doesn't burn. Now, if you pour gasoline on top of this, it becomes a big bomb. Boom! And it makes the burn time speed up so fast. And if I did a graph, this is how long it takes when you're running your engine down the track. And I am so careless with this tripod today. If it takes this long for gasoline to burn with air, and air is only 20% oxygen and a whole bunch of other stuff, and it takes this long for it to burn, one burn cycle, if you inject 33% more oxygen into this and dump a bunch of fuel on it where you still have 12.5 to 1 air-fuel ratio, this burn time goes like this. It makes this much more pressure, and it finishes this much sooner, and it builds pressure sooner. So if you're setting your ignition timing for your engine to burn peak here, with the nitrous, it burns peak here. So this is why when we run nitrous oxide, we can't run 30 degrees timing, because 30 degrees timing is based on this much burn time. Ignition timing I'm talking about. And if you're going to spray it down with a 100 or 200 shot, it's going to make big peak cylinder pressure sooner, so you may have to run 20 degrees timing. Now, people say all the time, well, nitrous hurt my engine. No, but the tuner, the person tuning the engine, will hurt it. Also, nitrous doesn't break connecting rods. It doesn't blow head gaskets. The cylinder pressure happening at the wrong time blows out base gaskets. It burns up pistons. It burns out head gaskets. It blows connecting rods out. It blows crankshafts out. It blows cranks out of the bearings, out of the cases. We tear up a lot of stuff. So it gets a bad reputation where it's not the nitrous oxide's fault. It is the person steering the nitrous oxide. Now, you could buy a kit like NOS or whoever sells a kit now. My friend Steve Johnson, not the Pro Stock Steve Johnson, but the other Steve Johnson, the one that sells nitrous kits, I think he's called Induction Solutions. Really smart guy. Been doing it long as I've been racing. And he doesn't even look that old, but he tries to tear himself up on dirt bikes and mini bikes and 4-wheelers and 3-wheelers. I mean, he's crazy, but he should be working on nitrous kits, or he's trying to hurt himself in the boat. Yeah, if you hear me out there, Steve, I'm talking about you. Yeah, the guy. What's your wife's name? Atomic or something? Yeah, you guys, it's right, isn't it? Ask her. He gets hurt a lot, but he should be trying to tune a nitrous kit. Faster burn is good, not good on nitrous. Slow down flame travel is king. Well, it's okay. You want it to burn fast so you can get more of it in there, and you want to do it more often, but you got to turn the timing down. That's where the key is. If this is the crank angle and this is TDC, and you light the spark here, you want the pressure to happen over here after TDC. If you spray it with nitrous, it's going to rise sooner and finish later, but it's going to get peak pressure sooner. So instead of starting the timing over here at like 30 degrees before TDC so that peak happens here, you might have to start it at 20 because it burns so fast. Peak's going to happen near TDC. There are real high-end Pro Mod cars out there that run 5 systems, 3 systems. They run 1,000 parts per million nitrous oxide, 2,000 parts per million nitrous oxide, and they make 800 horsepower engines, make 2,000 horsepower. Those guys are running, when they turn all their systems on, they're running almost zero timing. And when I say zero timing, I'm only talking about they start the spark plug at TDC lighting because it's going to make so much pressure so soon. It's got to make sure it happens after TDC. And why do you want the pressure to happen after TDC? Well, let's talk about that. At TDC, crankshaft mains, crankshaft rod bearing, wrist pin, piston, connecting rod, and then here's the crankshaft. All this is in a straight line. And if you have peak pressure at TDC, you're going to drive parts out, or it's going to blow the heads off, or it's going to blow the head gasket out, or it's going to bend this rod, or any of all of these things. So what we want it to do is we want the crankshaft to be over here after TDC. We want the piston to be going down, and we want the crank to be turned in this direction so that when the big pressure hits, it pushes down on the piston and rotates the crankshaft instead of standing everything straight up and blowing up parts. Talking about the ratio now. Let's talk about the ratio. Gasoline, to make peak power, to make the peak efficiency where they say a stoichiometric, let's say gasoline is 14.7 to 1. That's air-fuel ratio. But if you want it to make the most power you can, you want it to be somewhere around 12.5 to 1. Now, when you put in a bunch of nitrous oxide at, you control the bottle pressure, 900 PSI on the bottle pressure, let's just call it. You can run 700, 600, 500,000, whatever it is you want to control the nitrous pressure based on this and the jet size that the nitrous comes through. Nitrous jet, if you want to run a 0.78 or a 0.110 or whatever, the size of the nozzle and the bottle pressure dictates how much nitrous goes in. We also now, we still want 12.5 to 1. So whatever this gives you for oxygen, you've got to still put enough air to it. Excuse me, you got to put enough fuel to it to get 12 to 1. So if you're putting in 1,000 parts per million of nitrous oxide, you got to put in enough parts per million of fuel to get this back to 12 to 1 on your air-fuel ratio. And that's where the tuning comes in. Also, the ignition timing, you gotta retard the timing in order to get the cylinder pressure to happen where you want it to, and not near TDC, but slightly after TDC. How do you know all that? Well, you got to have in-cylinder crankcase pressure measurement. You got to have a wide bands. You got to have EGTs, and when you get good at reading all that stuff, it's easy for you to understand. But I didn't want to make a real technical, get in too deep on the nitrous technical side because it's very long-winded and confusing. But just understand, nitrous oxide does not make the engine go fast. Nitrous oxide does not add power. Only the ability to burn more fuel adds power. The ignition timing has to be set correctly, and the air-fuel ratio has to be set correctly. And then, of course, your engines, if you're going to go from, say, 100 horsepower to 200 horsepower or 1,000 horsepower to 2,000 horsepower by adding nitrous oxide and a ton more fuel, you have to upgrade all the parts from the oil pan gasket up or from the head gasket down. You got to change all those parts to be able to contain that much cylinder pressure. All right, Tom Grooms is spraying 18s and 24s. Okay, well, that's good. That's nice. That's easy to control compared to spraying like 8 50s, you know, in a fogger system for a Pro Mod deal. Hey, Gary, happy birthday. Jimmy, Tom, come on, man, go deep on nitrous. Okay, here's more. Here's more on nitrous. When I first started racing back in the 70s and 80s, there was an alloy that Wiseco sold everybody. It was a 4032 piston alloy. It was really, really good. Tough, tough, tough. It was really hard, really tough, but it was so hard that if you sprayed it and let it detonate by having the ignition timing a little bit too high, or the fuel a little bit on the lean side, or even on a little bit on the rich side, it would literally fracture the ringlands and break the piston. Back in 1984, Wiseco came out with the West Coast alloy. It was called 2618. That is the most famous and most popular piston alloy today because it's very tough and very ductile. And it moves around. It's malleable. It's malleable, not ductile. It's malleable. Matter of fact, you could take a 2618 alloy piston, a 4-inch bore or 5-inch bore, and throw it on the ground or throw it on the concrete, and it will not break. It will bend. 2618 alloy is almost indestructible. But us nitrous guys, with our ignition timing issues and our octane issues and our intake temperature and our timing and our jetting issues, we can burn some 2618 slap up. And I jokingly tell people that my vapor trail behind me in my career is 2618 alloy vapor trail for around the globe several times, because I ran over more pistons and burned up more pistons than most of you guys are old. No, I am definitely burned more pistons than you are old. I burned up more pistons than all y'all's ages added together. But 2618 alloy was not invented by Wiseco. That was the Arius, Benolia, the West Coast pistons. Those were really famous back in the day because Alcoa was out there and their forging house was right there, and they would just make all these forging blanks. They would make blanks, and they sold them to everybody, and they would grind and turn their own pistons with the 2618 West Coast alloy. And I know there's more coming to this, and we're going to have a lot of cool questions and answers, and I would love for you to give me some feedback on this so that I can answer your questions specifically. I wanted to say, Rob and Brian and Dan, thank you. And I wanted to also tell you that Tech Talk 113 is a blessing for you guys to be tuned in here and watch and listen. And thank you for paying attention to my little story we did with the champions swapping on the Pro Stock car and the Pro Stock motorcycle. Those were great days that were part of history of our sport. And stay tuned, follow us. I'm retired. And let me say this last thing about retired. I'm retired from having employees and motorcycle engines and stuff. I love selling hot rod parts that are better than it's available to others, in my opinion. And also, I want to tell you, these opinions about the Nitrous, there's guys out there smarter than me at Nitrous, and I'm just telling you what I think I know. And this is Tech Talk Tuesday based on the things I ran over in my life and the parts I ran over in my career and the things I burned up based on what I think I know. God bless y'all. Thank you so much for watching. And please come back for Tech Talk number 114 and give me feedback so I can make this better fun for you guys, because I enjoy it and I want it to be fun for you. May God bless y'all. Bye.